According to Common Core state standards, by the end of third grade, students should be able to measure and estimate liquid volume. Now, volume is a concept that's tricky for students to wrap their brains around because we quickly teach them the formula for volume, and we teach them that volume is the amount of space that an object has, but we don't necessarily give them the opportunity to apply volume like we do with, let's say, perimeter or area. And I truly believe that the best way to have students understand a concept is by them doing the concept. So I'm going to show you an activity that is super hands-on, and it touches on estimating liquid volume and measuring liquid volume. And you do need a few materials for this. So you're going to need some sort of bin full of water. You're going to need some sort of measuring cup to pour out of, or at least just something with a spout. But be careful, because if your measuring cup has the milliliters already labeled on it, or even the cups labeled on it, you're going to need to cover these up, because that will give away the estimation process. You're going to need some containers. I say 4 is the best number to have. If you have too many, then students might lose interest after a while. And you're going to need a beaker that clearly has milliliters labeled, and up to 500 should be plenty. So the first part of this activity is students estimate which container they think is going to hold the least amount of volume and which container has the most amount of volume. So I labeled each one of my containers with letters, but be warned, do not label them with letters that correspond with their size. So I would not label this tiny little cup with an A, because if students notice, oh, the really little one is labeled with an A and the really big one is labeled with a D, they're going to just put them in order from least to greatest based on the letter. So switch it up a little bit, because you don't want them picking up on those little tricks, because you know they will. Third graders are smart like that. So the first thing they do is they're going to put the containers in order from least to greatest. So I'm going to put this in the end, put this first, just like that. Once students have the containers ordered from least to greatest, they're going to grab their measuring cup, and then they're going to fill each cup, each container with water. Now, as you can see, I have a towel underneath all of my materials, just for that reason right there, if I accidentally spill some water. As an adult, it is hard to pour water and not spill it, and third graders are also going to have a little bit of a hard time with that. I don't mind if students make a little bit of a mess, but if you're a teacher who likes to keep things neat and orderly, just lay down a towel. Or even just paper towels. Anything you have on hand will work. So I'm going to fill up each of my containers. And by filling these containers up, students are going to notice that they have to dip the measuring cup in water at least a couple times for a couple of them. And that's good. You want them to do that, because you want them to start thinking about how much liquid is going in to each container. I'm gonna call that good. And if they spill one, that's okay. They can just fill it right back up. Now, the second part of this activity is that students are going to then measure, that's why we have our beaker, they're going to measure how much liquid is actually in each container to see if their estimating was correct. So I'm going to start with this one. We're just going to pour in there, and then they can check it. And it'd probably be helpful for the third graders if they had a paper and a pencil to be able to write these down. So that looks to be roughly, I would say 60 milliliters. I'm going to pour that out. This one. And that is roughly about 125 milliliters. 60, 125. And if you notice your students are having a difficult time being able to see where the clear water is meeting this like clear plastic beaker, you can just put some food dye in there, and that's really going to help them out. It's going to be easier for them to see it. And that is about 290 milliliters. So far everything is in order from least to greatest. Now here comes my big one. And it's also helpful to give students containers that aren't necessarily round, just like this one has more of a rectangular, do this right over here, more of a rectangular shape. And this one is way above 500 milliliters. I even have some still left in my container. So once students measure the water and they can see if their estimation was correct or if they have to rearrange things, and that's important too. If their estimations weren't correct, just have them switch the containers around. Like let's say this was supposed to be here. Just have them switch them around, and that's just going to give them a visual to show them how it progressed from least to greatest. So that's the activity that I have for you to help teach liquid volume. And you can do this with a whole group where you're just showing the students and then you're having them chorally call out to you, oh, you should put this one first and this one second. But I'm a proponent for having students do their own hands-on learning. So I say give them some water, give them some containers, and let them go at it. And I promise that they're going to learn definitely how to estimate and measure liquid volume.